Hi guys, welcome back. Today we have got 10 points in 10 minutes with Holli Kenley.
Hi, I'm Holli Kenley, and today I'm wondering if you have ever thought about the process of shifting. I'm going to offer up 10 tips to help get a little bit of the mystery out of this powerful process. Because after all, shifting our lives isn't about what happens to us. It's about what grows organically within us. What do I mean by that? Let's get started. Tip 1, truth. A couple of years ago, I came across this beautiful quote by Stephen Goodyear, and I'm going to paraphrase it a bit, but basically what he says is that if we would just pause for a minute and reflect on our lives like gardeners, that we would realize that within our soil lie seeds of change that are dormant. However, even more than we can imagine will grow there if given a chance. So the truth is that each one of us is capable of change. There are seeds that lie dormant within us. Tip 2, trust. I'm going to ask you to trust that quote, that there are these dormant seeds within us, and this is important. They are dormant, but they are not defective. Why is it that we are not knowing of them? I believe because there are layers of camouflage piled up on top of our soil that keep us from knowing and understanding that they are there. What are some of those layers? Let me give you 3. 1, our daily lives. We are busy with our families, with work, with our careers, raising our children, and all of the busyness of our lives. Number 2, distractions. We have healthy distractions like activities and pleasurable things, sports, enjoyable events in our lives. And sometimes we have unhealthy distractions like obsessions and compulsions and addictions and such that keeps us away from our knowing about these seeds. And the third one is disturbances. And those can show in either physiological disturbances like disease and illness, or psychological and emotional disturbances like stress, overwhelm, upset, anger, anxiety, and depression. And the point is that those seeds are there, they are dormant, and they are underneath those layers of camouflage, which leads us to tip 3, and that is triggers. As I said a moment ago, we're going about our lives, we're doing all of these things with the busyness, the distraction, the disturbances, and then there comes a point, I believe, where we reach this place of discomfort. And whatever we've been doing, we are no longer able to manage the discomfort, but the discomfort starts managing us. And what is so incredible is these seeds start stirring around in there, and they're calling to us. They're trying to get our attention. And they do that by sending messengers. And that comes in the form, as I mentioned a minute ago, about maybe psychological or physiological disturbance or disease. Or we start saying things to ourselves like, I'm a loser, I'm nothing, what's the matter with me, what's wrong? Or I'm in just so much pain in this relationship, in this way of being. But our triggers are calling us, our seeds are messaging us to go to tip 4. And that is turning inward. No pun intended, but this step or this tip is a tipping point. And this is why. Because our world out there, even though there's wonderful resources out there that are giving us support and things, that we keep our attention externally. And in this tip and in this step, I'm going to call and ask you to put a pause on that noise and turn inward and to be still and to listen, pray, meditate, reflect on what's going on in your life and why it's not working the way that you want it to. Because tip 4 will lead us to tip 5, which is tend to your soil. Let's think about a gardener for a minute. When he plants or she plants his or her seeds, they want the best possible conditions that they can get. So they examine and they prepare the soil, they take out the toxins, they clear the debris, and then they bring in nutrients. And they want the best light and darkness and warmth and moisture possible so that that seed can take root and so that it can grow. This step is one that most people miss, and I believe it is so important, is that we need to take the time to do the hard work, to tend to our soil, to clear it out, to tend to the wounds, the injuries, the injustices, the trauma, whatever it might be that got us to where we are. And this is a time during this period where we may need to reach out for support. We may need to call that recovery center. We may need to go to a meeting. We may need to get that extra support that we need through a therapist, a counselor, a spiritual guide, a mentor, or a coach. You don't have to do it alone. But we need to do the hard work, because when we do that hard work of clearing and cleaning all of that out, we go to tip 6, where the seed takes root and the stem ascends. And there are different pathways that then begin to shift us into our growth. And I'm going to go over just 3 of them, and there are many of them. One is it might be a cognitive-based pathway. In other words, as our self-compassion and courage start to enter our being, because we've cleared all that yuck out of there, is that we're not going to be thinking, I'm not worthy, I'm not important, I can't do it. But we're thinking, you know what? Maybe I am important. Maybe I do have what it takes. I'm going to apply for that job. I am going to go ahead and make that call. I might just go back to school. I'm valuable. I'm important. So we have those little shifts going on in our cognitive section of our brain, or the pathway might be action-based, or what we call behavioral-based, where we just say, you know, I've had enough. I'm still scared. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to go to that meeting. I'm going to attend that support group. I'm going to make that call to that therapist. And the third pathway, the one that I am most familiar with, although I use cognitive behavioral therapy in my work, is the therapeutic pathway, where a client calls and comes in and around the relationship that we build, which is built on trust and safety and unconditional positive regard and acceptance and belonging, that we unearth their stories and find out what happened to them, not what's wrong with them. And through that insight and awareness, we build little shifts, and those little shifts link to other shifts and create that larger shift and that growth. Tip 6, those paths of emergence lead to number 7, or tip 7. And this is so important because it's tested. You better believe it. It could have happened earlier, but this is going to happen. Let's go to the gardener for a minute. Summer comes, the plants are coming up, we have beautiful growth. A wise, intentional gardener will plan for rain and floods and heat and wind and whatever comes his or her way. And we must do the same, because that testing, that internal or external resistance is going to show up. What do I mean by internal resistance? That stinking thinking, those self-deprecating thoughts, that self-shaming, that self-doubt, it's going to creep back up in there. And also we might even go into a full-blown relapse or unhealthy patterns of thinking, behaving, and feeling. We're not going to panic. We're going to shore that up. We're going to get the tools that we need, and we're going to move through that resistance. And it also could be external, and this is important, comes from our environment as well. It might be family, it might be friends, it might be coworkers or unhealthy relationships. They don't want to see us change. And in fact, sometimes they're threatened by our change. It might come from people in positions of power and control, or other adverse conditions like financial constraints. The point is, we're going to be tested. We're going to get through it. We're going to get the tools that we need. And then we're going to move into tip 8, which is sustainable, tenacious growth. What do I mean by that? Sometimes people ask me, Holli, why do you get so excited when you talk about relapse or regression or resistance? And I said, this is important, because if we embrace the tools that we need and do the hard work, we're going to learn more about ourselves. We're going to find out why we were vulnerable in the first place, and we're going to shore that up. And that growth has the opportunity to get integrated within our being, and we're going to have evidence of it. And I'm just going to give you 3 pieces of evidence. You will know this is happening. Number 1, because you will realize you are not the same person that you were before. You will know it. Number 2 is that things you used to tolerate are no longer tolerable. And this third one is beautiful, is that you will begin speaking your truth. You will feel it and you will speak it, but it won't be with an angry, resentful, reactive spirit. It will be calm and recentered and peaceful. You will know that you are shifting and changing, which then leads us to tip 9, timeless teachings. These all kind of go together. At the end of a harvest, what does the wise, intentional gardener do? He or she sits back and looks at what the harvest, how well it produced, and they say, what can I learn from this? In this season of growth, what worked well? What didn't? What do I need to change? What do I need to reboundary? What do I need to reshore up? Because if I can learn from this, my next season of growth, I'll go into it with more wisdom, more knowledge, more insight, which brings us to the last tip. And we're going to go back to truth again, is that everything I've said, it's not easy. It's hard work. I want you to think for a minute about the people that you respect, you admire, you listen to their podcasts like Dr. Neff, you read their books, and they have sustainable growth. If you ask them, if you ask me, because I've done the same thing, it isn't easy. It's hard and it's ongoing. And so today I'm going to challenge you. Will you do the hard work to achieve that sustainable growth? Number 2, let's go back to the quote, is that Stephen Goudier said, there are seeds there and even more will grow there than you can ever imagine. If you do the hard work, you put the pause on the noise out there, that you're going to have gifts of growth, healing, and transformation. The question is, the challenge is, will you do the hard work and will you receive those gifts? And then at the end of the quote, the third point is chance and choice. He says, even more will grow there than that you can imagine if given the chance. Will you take that chance? Will you make that choice to grow, to heal, transform? Will you take that path to bravely shift?
What an amazing summary. What an amazing journey you have done and what you have summarized in these 10 minutes. I'm so grateful. Holli Kenley, 10 points in 10 minutes. You guys out there, stay strong. I believe in you. Look after yourself. Bye.
Bye.